Hello, I'm Catherine, the author of TORIANA, and I've, in the second edition of writing this book, I've decided to change the name of the book, and it's going to be called Adventures in Africa, TORIANA's Spiritual Journey. So now I'm going to read the next chapter, which is chapter 24, Being a Wife. Charm is deceitful and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Proverbs 31, verse 20. As I slowly woke up, still with a joyful heart from the wonderful honeymoon we'd had, I now lay in our newly purchased wedding bed in what was Robert's bachelor flat, was now our home. I rolled over to find Robert was not there. As I slowly got up, I checked the time, and it was still early. I found Robert all dressed in his work clothes, almost finished his breakfast, having time in his study, which I've come to call his man cave. He was back into his normal routine of life as it had always been in his flat. We then kissed goodbye and off he went to work. I had different ideas in my romantic female mind of how waking up on our first normal day together would be. I tried to process my feelings through the day, suddenly feeling very lonely. I kept reminding myself that my gran had said to me, marriage is hard work, and was I ready and prepared to stick to it no matter what? She told me it's not about being a microwave relationship, it's about sticking at it and that sometimes it would take time. Robert was blissfully unaware of what I was going through and came home, excited to be home after work with me, having had a wonderful full day of interaction with his work colleagues. I had been home doing cleaning and then getting supper ready for his return, but my heart was sad. I had come from a full life of missionary adventures, leading teams, and now I was alone at home, doing the wifely thing. This is actually what I dreamt about all my life, being a wife, but I was not prepared for the feelings and emotions that came that day and that year. The important part of the process was to continue to be open my heart to Robert and share these things with him. It was not that easy for him, and I think like any man he wanted to try and fix things, but he learned that all I wanted was for him to listen and to hug me. It was through this year of him discovering a woman's heart and I discovered what's important to him as a man and as my best friend. Our second day at home, I woke up and a table was laid with a flower and a lit candle. We had breakfast together and we read from our prayer book, and then Robert kissed me goodbye and went to work. That day was better, and each day became better, as we discovered new ways of being husband and wife. Robert had also had a dream to be on the mission field for a season. It was exciting for us when Duguna, the mission organization that I had been a part of, suggested that we come and serve in Duguna, in Kenya, with the Duguna Discipleship School. Robert's church in Port Elizabeth and my church in Cape Town were very supportive in praying for us and commissioning us in this next season of our lives. We also had German churches support us, and they were incredible with the way they embraced us, prayed for us, and supported us too. After leaving South Africa, we made a trip to Germany to share with the churches there, our next step into what we felt God calling us into with Duguna. We spent some time in Germany, and Robert went to German school to learn German for a month or two, and we took time to prepare ourselves for missionary life in Kenya. Deep within my heart, I wanted Robert to experience missionary life as I had, and more. At the time, my dream was to become a mom. We both felt that this was now the time and the season for me to experience what I'd hoped and dreamt of. We were not sure when God was going to allow this to happen in our lives, but we were going to let it happen when it happened. It was during our time in Germany that I discovered I was pregnant. We were so excited, and at the same time we knew it was best to keep it to ourselves for a few months before sharing it with others. I watched so many YouTube videos on the days and weeks of how a baby grows after conception. I had been to a doctor and she had confirmed I was pregnant, and we booked an appointment for a couple of weeks later. I had watched more movies on the first time a couple sees their baby on a screen and the heartbeat and the incredible experience to see life growing inside of you. When we came into the room, at the doctor's rooms and the scan started. She checked and checked, and then while I was lying there, she explained that the sac was empty, that my body must have terminated the pregnancy earlier, and that my body continued to be pregnant. I was shocked and deeply disappointed. We both learned that this was normal and that sometimes couples had this experience, and I started the process of miscarrying. It was very painful, and Robert was with me through it all. We went for various tests to find out what had gone wrong, but through it all, they could find nothing wrong, and our blood types were compatible. Sometimes we just don't have answers. We continued in our calling as missionaries in Kenya. Robert loved his job at Duguna Discipleship School. He enjoyed learning Kiswahili and teaching young students the Word of God. He made some good friends and went on a number of outreaches on his own with teams that really impacted his life. I was happy for him as I saw God use him in incredible ways. Rob was then involved with designing our home in Kenya, and we embraced the life and calling of being missionaries at Duguna Discipleship School. My role remained being the supportive wife as Robert prepared lessons. It was in this time that I fell pregnant again, and it was the longest term I'd had. I took more time to rest. Then came the time that we had to see a doctor and get a scan, and in all honesty, we were both nervous. Then came the time that we had to see a doctor and get a scan, and we saw to see the baby on the screen. But then the doctor said, "Pole sana," which means "I'm sorry." She could not find a heartbeat. We then waited a week or two and went to another doctor who confirmed that there was no heartbeat and that my body was holding onto this baby even though it had died. She said she would give me 1 more week, but that it was becoming dangerous for me to keep the baby inside. Later that week, I miscarried at our missionary home in Kenya. The emotional pain and devastation is something that I could not easily put into words. I also saw Robert's pain, and we really grappled with God to try and understand why I kept losing our babies. After this miscarriage came another 5 in a row, and my dream of becoming a mom was slipping away, and I had no control. I can remember coming to breakfast table in our Kenya home, and Robert asked me if I would be open to adopting a baby. He had prayed about it and felt open to it. He knew how much I wanted to be a mom. It had crossed my mind, but I'd never thought it would be something we would both seriously think and pray about. We began the search for a social worker to assist us. A friend referred us to a social worker in Port Elizabeth. We then started the process of filling out forms, sending our portfolio, an album of our little family, that being Rob and I, and our home and our dog Rory. I can remember that day we received a message that there was a possibility that there was a baby boy for us. The excitement in my heart is one I cannot explain. We prepared for me to fly before Robert as he was teaching and would come later. When I arrived in Johannesburg, I stayed with my dad and Marie Claire. I then also spent some time with my gran in Cape Town. It was in Cape Town that I realized something wasn't right. I did a pregnancy test and found out I was pregnant. We had not planned this at all. I went to see my Cape Town gynae, and he had some ideas that I had blood clotting that was causing me to terminate the pregnancies. I spent the next day injecting my stomach to keep me from miscarrying, and to keep my blood thin, and to keep our baby. When I spoke to Robert, we decided that we would still adopt the baby boy we had planned to adopt. The day before Robert arrived at the airport, I started miscarrying, and we both knew that we were called to adopt our baby boy. I had all the birth pains you can imagine, but it didn't matter to me as I knew that we were going to meet our baby boy. I cannot explain the joy we had the day we went to pick up baby Ezekiel from our social worker. Our hearts bonded the moment he was in our arms. The joy in his little eyes and the joy in our hearts is a day I will never forget. Yes, I am a wife, but now I was finally a mum.